So today we are going to talk about the Taylor Swift journalist because I think I have an interesting perspective to share on that. And a lot of people asked me why I didn't apply. Or a lot of people were telling me to apply. Do you know how many people sent me that job listing? Why wouldn't I, the Swiftologist, man who loves Taylor Swift, who reports on Taylor Swift, why wouldn't I want that job? You might be asking yourself. And I did consider it. We're going to get into what the TS journalist is. Why wouldn't I want it? Got that question a lot. Well, I am a Taylor Swift reporter. Let's start there. I am a Taylor Swift reporter. I already do reporting works on Taylor Swift on my YouTube channel, on my podcast, and on my Patreon, on all of my social media accounts. I own all of that intellectual property. When you write or publish for another publication, they own all of the content that you make. There's a great thing I can do with my Twitch streams, for example. Like I'm here chatting. I can then take the recording of this video and make a YouTube video out of it and put that up. And then that gets my message out further. I could also turn this into a podcast, I guess, if I wanted to. I own all of the content that I create. So I get to choose how it's repurposed, where it's repurposed, and who gets to use it or take it out of context. So if someone tries to take my words and twist them, I can file a DMCA complaint, a copyright complaint, because that's my content. I own it. So that would be strike one. So the journalism industry is also dying. Like if you want to be a journalist, the best way to be a journalist is to do independent reporting, build your own audience, gather your own email list, create your own subscriber base, and talk directly to the people that want to support your work. Because the traditional news outlets are dying. People don't read. People don't go. The few media enterprises that are actually profitable, the New York Times being one of them, have pivoted into being like media companies. They do more than just write the news. But unfortunately, their revenue priorities do not rely on having really, really excellent journalists anymore. It's not possible to make a comfortable living as a journalist in this day and age. It's just not working for a traditional media outlet. This is the problem. So if you're going to be paying for a subscription service, I pay for the New York Times because I believe in independent reporting. Am I happy with the New York Times? Do I think it's gotten a lot worse over the years? Yes, for sure. But I am happy to subscribe to them because I want to support journalism. But also, I like independent journalism. And sometimes I'm not looking to hear an outlet's perspective. I'm looking to hear a person's perspective, someone that I like to hear from on a regular basis. So for example, I really like Casey Newton. He is a technology reporter and he writes about like big tech and what's going on legally, all the antitrust investigations. He covered the fallout of Twitter really well. He has a Substack called Platformer that I subscribe to. I have a paid subscription to that because I appreciate and I value the work that he does. And he has been able to build his own like small little media empire. So he just hired a new editor to come in and help him. And I much prefer to support a lean operation like that because they have fewer ideological biases. And if they do have an ideological bias, they make it pretty clear off the bat. They're not trying to hide it from you, which is what the New York Times does all the time. So I really like that. I also love Kimberly Nicole Foster. I've talked about her a lot. She's more of a content creator rather than a journalist, but the future of media is like paid subscriptions to people that you like to hear from. And I can see that translating to my own success as a content creator. Like I know that people want to hear from me and they're willing to pay to hear more. So I find that to be very motivating. The problem about reporting for a paper is that you don't have a say in how your stories are packaged. So like you write your story, it has to go through, if it's a good newsroom, it has to go through your editor, the section editor, then it has to go through a sub editor or a copy editor, then it has to get fact checked, then it has to go out. Fact checking is incredibly useful and valuable, of course. But what happens in that process is your words get distilled and diluted and someone else's words as an editor will come in and interfere. And it's not like fiction or like writing a book or whatever, where an editor's job is to guide you in the right direction. With journalists, editors are a bit more hands-on. There's a little bit more intervention, like being like, I'm going to rewrite this sentence for you to help you be clearer. And that is good. So going through the traditional newsroom structure as well of publishing your work, I've done that. And it is useful for when you're talking about like, I don't know, things that have like more serious reporting required. So like you really, if you're talking about like a government or like something where there's like facts and statistics that need to be reported correctly, like that's useful. When you're writing about Taylor Swift, yes, fact checking can be ideologically biased as well. So everybody has a different interpretation of like what a reliable fact or statistic is. Also, the quality of a fact checker is going to vary from publication to publication. It depends how rigorous it is. Like it's not a foolproof process. Just because something is fact checked doesn't mean you won't make a mistake as well. So that's that's kind of the thing. When you're trying to write like more cultural commentary or you're trying to deliver an opinion, sometimes that structure can be really obtrusive to what you want to write about. And sometimes editors will package your story in a way that like completely misrepresents it, and then it gets taken the wrong way because people don't read, so it goes viral for the wrong reasons. There's a lot of like things, like you don't have a lot of control over your work when you give it up to a publication like that. So the last thing that my favorite thing about being a content creator is being able to say whatever I want and express it however I want. Even if I'm wrong, even if I make a mistake, that's my mistake to own. I'm happy to own it. If I make a factual error, that's on me. It's all down to me, blah, blah, blah. I don't have to carry the weight of a publication's prior mistakes or, whatever people think about them with me when people encounter my work. So my favorite part about creating content for you all is that like the only person that really gets to decide what I say and how I say it is me. And obviously I take into consideration what you guys want to hear very seriously. Like I make content for you. I don't make content for me, but the way that I go about fulfilling those wishes that you have is completely up to me. Also, journalism salaries very low, and a lot of work required, not good job security, no upward mobility. If you this guy that has the Taylor Swift reporter job has nowhere to go. There's not going to be a Taylor Swift editor job. There's not going to be a Taylor Swift masthead. There's not going to be a Taylor Swift publication. Why? Because there's plenty of free content out there, little mini media empires that get way more attention, engagement, and interaction than this ever will. So what this publication was trying to do by hiring a Taylor Swift reporter was, nobody's reading the news, especially USA Today. Nobody's reading Gannett publications, USA Today, the Tennessean. No one's reading that. They're dying. Like these publications are really struggling to digitize. If it's not the New York Times, if it's not the New Yorker, if it's not like, I don't know, Breitbart, they're really having like serious financial issues that will prevent them from surviving. So they're doing everything they can to enter into the digital world and putting up a job. Like think about how viral the Taylor Swift reporter job went before it was even like hired. That was a stunt. Like, I don't think this job is going to last post the Eras tour. He's not going to hang on to this job. It's not going to last forever. And it's not going to be received well because Swifties are demonic. Swifties are literally demonic. This was never going to end well for the person that got it. As soon as I saw the job, I was like, wow, it would be so fun to be like a full-time Taylor Swift reporter and get paid for it. And then I was like, wait, I do that. I do that. And I own it, and I have control over how long it's going to last. I mean, I have as much control as any other content creator, but no outlet is going to fire me and say, you're not a Taylor Swift reporter anymore. Right? That's good. That's very powerful. The Taylor Swift content creation space is already and now it's reaching a point of oversaturation. Thank God I got into it early. We don't need a reporter. Normal reporters, good journalists, can cover Taylor Swift much better than a Taylor Swift reporter ever could, as in a Taylor Swift reporter writing for a publication, because they're supposed to have an illusion of objectivity, right? So theoretically, I could do that job very well. I would be a great candidate for the job if I do say so myself, because I am a fan who is very critical of her whenever I would like to be. I'm not a stan in the traditional sense, but I also have a very extensive encyclopedic knowledge of the Taylor Swift operation. I can only do what I do without the interference of other people. Like, I don't think that a publication is going to give me the time to dismantle Daylight and talk about why I think it's a superfluous song. They're going to be like, that's not interesting. But someone who's editing a Taylor Swift reporter is not going to understand what I'm trying to do. And at the end of the day, my content reaches more people than any of these articles will. Just like Chats and Reacts have 4 times the reach that USA Today articles will ever have. So let's go into the New York Times article about the position and discuss, shall we? Everything has changed for Bryan West. Gannett, the largest newspaper chain in the United States, announced on Monday that Mr. West would fill a much coveted job as the company's first ever Taylor Swift reporter, covering all things related to the international pop sensation for USA Today and Gannett's network of more than other 200 papers that no one reads across the country. But before Mr. West, 35, had the chance to file his first story on the new beat, he was getting criticism from two sides: journalism watchdogs and Miss Swift's fans. The objections started rolling in shortly after Variety broke the news of his hiring on Monday. The article included an interview with Mr. West, which provided newsroom ethicists and Swifties alike with grounds for complaint. Mr. West, who was formerly a TV news reporter in Phoenix, raised hackles by describing himself as a fan of Taylor. That remark caused some journalists to question whether or not he could be unbiased when it came to his new beat. At the same time, the singer's fans debated whether he was a big enough Swiftie to capture their beloved star. Some people in both camps said the job was better suited to a woman. I really don't know how to land on the issue of whether it has to be a woman or not. I think that there's something to be said about like how Taylor's artistry chronicles girlhood and womanhood in a way, but I think that it's very reductive to suggest that only a woman would be able to understand that or cover that. Imagine making the reverse argument that only a man can talk about men's issues. We wouldn't really be letting that fly, would we? In the Variety interview, he likened himself to a sports reporter, making the case that he could maintain his neutrality. I would say this position's no different than being a sports journalist who's a fan of the home team. Spoiler alert, the sports journalists did not like that. I came from Phoenix, where all of the anchors were wearing Diamondbacks gears, and they want the Diamondbacks to win. The remark did not sit well with a number of sports writers, including this guy. Any sports journalist will tell you the number one rule of sports journalism is no cheering in the press box. It's one of the hallmarks of the profession. It's one of the first things you learn. The idea, of course, being that if you are a fan of the team, then you can't be an unbiased reporter. I don't know that I necessarily think that's true, they continued, but I think the fact that he's making that comparison shows to me a fundamental misunderstanding of what the role of a sports journalist is. Well, he's a Swiftie. Like, what do you expect him to do? Like, the analogy holds up to me. Like, that analogy makes sense, and this sports journalist is just, I think, mad that he's being compared to a Taylor Swift journalist. Like, this quote actually doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't think that's true. He doesn't understand what a sports journalist is, but also I am a fan of a team, and I can be an unbiased reporter even if I am a fan of the team. If I was an editor editing this piece, I would be like, you need to ask follow-up because he's not making his position clear. An editor at NBC News criticized the hiring of Mr. Wex on X, I will never call it X, Twitter, writing that Gannett had given the job to a full-time stan rather than someone who's capable of being critical of one of the most powerful people in all of pop culture. This killed me. This is so unserious. Haters gonna hate, Lark Marie Anton, Gannett's chief communications officer, wrote in an email replying to the criticism from journalists. That's your response, is haters gonna hate. This is like in Congress when they were using lyrics from Anti-Hero. Like, please stop. The spokeswoman added that Mr. West's credentials made him the best candidate for the role. Mr. West, who's now and you know what? That's probably true because the people that applied to this job were probably not real journalists. They were all people like who don't actually have an extensive career in reporting. The candidate quality pool they have to choose from is very low. I'm sorry. He probably had the most, like, he has broadcast television experience. Like, he probably was the best qualified applicant for the job. The people that actually ended up applying, like, you're not going to hire the girlie on Twitter who writes tweets all day. Like, you're not going to get the job. Being a YouTuber is not a strong enough qualification to be a reporter. I thought that was just obvious. He's based in Nashville, blah, blah, blah. April Gluck Polito, a Swift fan who works in political communications, posted lyrics from a Taylor Swift song in response to the hiring. I'm so sick of running as fast as I can, wondering if I'd get there quicker if I was a man, she wrote, quoting The Man, which reimagines the singer's life if she hadn't been born a man. This is so stupid. It wasn't a statement on the chops of this reporter. He seems extremely qualified, but as someone who works in communications, the optics of the choice are undeniable. She would have preferred to see the role go to a female applicant, someone so many Taylor fans could look up to and see themselves in. The role of a reporter is not to be a role model. What are you talking about? You're not supposed to see yourself in a reporter. A reporter is supposed to deliver news to you. Do you understand, this communications person, do you understand what a reporter does? Do you understand what news is? Do you know what journalism is? God, this is so stupid. And she thought she ate too. This is a 35-year-old woman. She said, I'm so sick of running as fast as I can. So you wanted the job, basically. A lot of this is coming from places of hateration. Like, this is coming from places of, I want the job. And if you don't have the qualifications to do the job, then you can't get it. So this is the thing. And it's like, you think that you're running as fast as you can, but let's compare your resumes side by side and see if you actually have the same experience. If you don't have the same experience, if you are not the most qualified person to get the role, then why should you get it? You should get it because you're a woman? That doesn't make any sense. Like, you should just get it because you're a woman. Even if he has better experience than you, Taylor fans need someone to look up to and see themselves in. They have that in Taylor Swift, you idiot. They don't need that in the person writing about her. And yes, getting a job based on merit. I mean, of course, there are like affirmative action things that can be done in hiring processes. Diversity is a complex issue. But I haven't seen a sparkling candidate come out of the woodwork that was rejected for this role. I don't understand that. And then the Gannett spokeswoman said the company doesn't discriminate. This is the thing. If you said I'm only hiring a woman for this position, I'm pretty sure you could get there's legal actions against that. You cannot hire people based on their gender. You can't do that. It works both ways. This is the thing. In a year when seemingly anything having to do with the singer has drawn media scrutiny, Gannett's announcement that it planned to hire a dedicated Swift reporter generated plenty of headlines and online comments. The chosen candidate, the company said when it launched the search in September, would identify why the pop star's influence only expands and what her fan base stands for in pop culture. As part of his application, he submitted a 5-minute video listing the reasons he should be hired. The first was his journalism experience. He previously worked as a broadcast reporter and a producer at the NBC affiliate in Phoenix and said that he had won several awards. Now, this is the part that everybody wants to ignore. Do I think that his work is that good or that interesting? No. But like, of all the people that applied for this job, he has the most hard credentials. Like the job description, I went through it. I looked at what the job requirements are. They actually asked for a lot of stuff. They needed you not only to be able to write and report, but they also needed you to be able to do production work on the fly, meaning you need to shoot, edit, package all of your stories on the road with a camera and a mic in tow, audio-visual communications, being able to do that. Also, him being a broadcast reporter, having the on-screen talent experience, having some written article experience, and then also being a producer is an extremely valuable skill to have as a journalist. Having production experience really neatly ticks all of the boxes. YouTube is not production experience because production experience involves multiple moving parts, a lot of like on the fly, on location shoots, trying to understand how to get a soundbite from the public. It's not the same as setting up a camera and a light and filming and editing. That's not what production experience is. His second reason was that he had met Taylor Swift. That was his second reason to be hired. Now that is not a good reason. The opportunity to meet her arose after he reported several stories about her while working in Phoenix. He included a photo of him with her in the application. Here's the thing with that. That's actually not making a very good point. If your following point is that you are unbiased, then having the opportunity to meet her because you wrote good stories about her and showing that you are willing to do it again is not really convincing material. But again, I think they had slim picking. In his application, he added, though he might be a fan, he was able to report on her without bias. He listed 3 songs he can't stand as evidence. He was misquoted as saying that he got the name wrong. He didn't actually, by the way. That was a misquote. He also noted that he was 5 years sober. And apparently it seems to me as though what's being inferred here is that Swifties tried to suggest that they dug up his past and tried to suggest that he would be a bad fit for this task because he had addiction issues. Though critical of Mr. West's deference to how sports journalists go about their jobs, De La Cretaz said that they had sympathy for Gannett's splashy hire. This is a brutal fan base, and I don't think there was ever going to be any winning for whoever they hired into that role. This is a very important point. Either he doesn't get respect from the general public because he's a fan and seen as biased, or he doesn't get respect from the fandom because he's not the right kind of fan. And there was never going to be the right kind of fan. This is the thing. Whoever it was going to get absolute nonsense because everybody wanted this. It comes from a place of hateration. Swifties are very hateful. A professor and former dean at the Columbia Journalism School said that the passion for his subject could yield fine reporting. That's also true. I think expecting journalists to completely suspend any kind of personal liking for a pop star or a baseball team is probably unworkable. The key is kind of how you go about covering it. They were never going to make people happy with who they hired. It was always going to be a tricky, unpopular decision. People were going to get upset and be mad about it. It seems like he was the best candidate for the job, so... And I mean, the scope of the job is also not clear. They just said that they need him to travel and cover stuff. So if he's like, what is there to report on at the Eras Tour? Do people really want to read a play-by-play of each show that they've seen in the movies? Like, I don't get what he's going to do. The smart thing for Taylor and 13 management would be to bring him into the fold and to give him a little bit of access. And in exchange, he will inevitably never write anything too critical about her. The second he gets a little bit of access, it's over. Like he won't write anything critical about her. So if she's smart and she wants to keep controlling the narrative, because this is high profile now, people are going to look up what he says and tear it apart. I think that if she really wanted to keep a handle on it, she would give him some access. It makes sense. And he will, because he's a fan, this is the problem. If he was not a fan, giving him access might sway him in a positive direction, but it likely wouldn't steer him off the course of being a critic. And I can't say the same for this guy. So if we see Taylor interacting or giving him attention, then you know that it's about to devolve into something that's not good. Thanks for coming. Hope you all enjoyed the winding road we went on today. Bye.